The Politics of Species, the book that came out in 2013, came out of a conference that was organized in 2011 by the Arcus Foundation, and together with Raymond Corby of the University of Leiden in the Netherlands, we were thinking about starting a discussion about why humans treat non-human animals in the way that they do and what arguments they use to justify their treatment of non-human animals. But we wanted to look at it from a multidisciplinary perspective. We wanted to hear not just from the perspective of philosophers or primatologists, but to include lawyers, people working on civil rights issues, and more from a legal perspective, as well as from a medical perspective, a scientific perspective, a sociological, psychological perspective. So it was about creating a dialogue between different areas of expertise and seeing whether that dialogue would help us deepen our understanding of why humans treat non-human animals in the way that they do and the justifications for it, but also try and see if we could tease out from that strategies for how to improve the well-being of animals and how to change attitudes and behavior of humans towards non-human animals. The Politics of Species really emphasizes the political lens that you can take on how humans justify their treatment of non-human animals. Basically, it's about power. It's about control and a sense of authority and dominion. And that's really what the essence of politics is all about. And it's about how we, humans, feel that we have the right to abuse, enslave, consume, exploit non-human animals, and we do it by the billions of animals every year for all sorts of different industries. And it also includes the destruction of their habitat, the destruction of their lives in the wild. It's not just the specific exploitation as food or clothing or anything else. And so that's why it's seen as a very political issue. It is about our use of power and our feeling that we are entitled to have that power.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that the attitudes of religion and the underpinnings of primarily Western Christian, Muslim, and Judaist beliefs really has formulated and has provided the foundation for why we feel we are entitled to exploit other animals, because we have been granted, according to our beliefs, dominion over them. And that dominion was interpreted as a utilitarian form of domination, one where we are entitled to use them and exploit them for our benefit and to serve us. And I think that that is a very, very strong root for our behavior. And that root has influenced philosophy, and that philosophy has also formed and shaped our behavior and is so internalized now that we truly are even unaware of how much it informs our belief systems and how much even atheists among us still feel it is okay to exploit non-human animals and to consume them and to basically put them in servitude for our benefit, even without the religious underpinnings anymore. Personhood is a concept which has been traditionally applied and limited to belonging to humans. Humans have personhood, and it's been defined to a large extent on the basis of our sentience, our ability to feel emotions, our ability to anticipate and foresee either suffering or pleasure, and our value, our importance. And it's been limited to humans largely because of our religious and philosophical belief system, which has formulated so much, or formed and shaped so much of our thinking. However, when you look at the philosophical and legal definition of personhood, it is not limited to humans. And it really means that we need to explore in a very genuine way what are the criteria we use to define personhood. And then that opens up the question as to are other beings also eligible to be labeled as persons. This is not a new chapter in animal rights. It's actually something that has been discussed and thought about for decades. It's gaining traction now in a way that it probably hasn't in the past. And I think it's opening doors to us challenging many of the very fundamental beliefs that we've carried with us without questioning them for so many generations. And I think that's where it's starting to gain a momentum that is exciting and potentially, hopefully, will open doors for us changing some of those ideas and some of our foundations for our comfort with exploiting non-human animals in the way that we have. The timing of the lawsuit for the Non-Human Rights Project and the 4 chimpanzees that are included in that lawsuit was not deliberately timed to come out at the same time as The Politics of Species. But Stephen Weiss wrote a chapter in The Politics of Species, was one of the participants at the round table in 2011, and he was part of that because of his very important work, his and his team. He has a very strong team of people working with him. And their work has helped shape much of the thinking and has challenged many of the easy ideas that we have been able to carry with us over so many generations of feeling quite satisfied, quite comfortable, and quite relaxed in our sense of entitlement. I think as I said earlier, I think we're coming to a point in time where we're gaining momentum with many of the ideas that are encapsulated in The Politics of Species. The ideas there aren't necessarily new. They've been developed, they've been brewing for several decades, but they're now gaining momentum, and there's a number of initiatives that have taken place over the past year, 2 years, 3 years, that are really showing how many people are starting to understand the importance of these questions that are being asked. One of those questions is obviously the legal rights of non-human animals, which is taken on by Stephen Weiss and his team on the Non-Human Rights Project. Another area that has been really challenged and is being looked at very critically is the use of animals, sentient beings, in entertainment. And the exploitation of whether it be chimpanzees or orangutans or cetaceans like dolphins and orcas in marine facilities where they are taught to do tricks are really being challenged. Is this appropriate? Is this correct? And a recent film that came out in 2013, which will be up for the Oscars, Blackfish, is examining in a very balanced way the arguments pro and against the use of cetaceans in entertainment industry. Lori Marino, who is a expert on the cognition of cetaceans as well as on their sentience and much of their emotional depth and richness, is also a contributor to the book, The Politics of Species. And she's also one of the people who is included in the film Blackfish, and she speaks about the intelligence of orcas and their incredibly developed brains and the rich emotional centers that they have in their brains, far greater than that of humans, and challenges through that our sense that we are entitled to using them for our entertainment, for cheap entertainment in marine parks. Dr. Hope Ferdowsian is a doctor, a medical doctor who has been working with post-traumatic stress disorder and various psychological disorders, and has drawn comparison between many of the behaviors that are shown by humans who have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder with other non-human beings, and particularly with apes because of the similarities between humans and non-human apes, and has shown that apes are, she and other scientists have shown that apes often suffer from captivity, from invasive medical experimentation, and from other forms of exploitation in ways that can be comparable to the ways that humans suffer from extreme stress. And they show that suffering in many of the same behaviors, which we define clinically as post-traumatic stress disorder. And so she has been working with a whole team of people on trying to define a clinical definition of evidence for post-traumatic stress disorder in non-human beings. Because at the moment, the criteria for that are limited to humans. And she is trying to expand that to what's happening in non-human animals, and then also granting rights, and that you cannot treat animals in that way when it can be shown to lead to this evidence of suffering. The growth in scientific evidence for the depth of capacities, abilities, sentience in non-human animals, and the science, the empirical evidence that shows that animals are suffering, that animals are capable, that animals feel both happiness, anxiety, pain, and other feelings, that contributes enormously to the arguments for treating animals with respect and with empathy and with what we call humanity. It's not enough. Science alone isn't going to answer and change human behavior. Human behavior is based on much more than either lack of or having knowledge. Our behavior is shaped so much by prejudices, by beliefs, by attitudes. It's not just based on knowledge. So yes, in increasing the amount of knowledge that's available to us, the proof, the evidence of things happening is going to be hugely influential, and it's a very strong argument that people can use. And for some people it'll be enough. They need to know and to see that yes, a fish can feel pain, to change their behavior with respect to eating or treating fish in a careless way. And for others, it's not going to make any difference at all, because the reason they treated animals, fish or whatever it is, in that way was not because they didn't know, but because they didn't care. And in those cases, you need to change why they care. And so there is also very important work happening in, for example, in the Christian church about empathy and expanding that beyond humans to non-human animals. And I think that we need to look at it from many different strategies. There isn't just one strategy that's going to change human behavior. We are complex beings, and and many different things motivate us. And sometimes it's apathy, and sometimes it's just too much and we can't think about it, and so we prefer to just push it out of our minds. We need many different strategies to change and shape our behavior. And that's where we have to be smart. And that's partly why the book, The Politics of Species, took a multidisciplinary approach, because we wanted to look at it from the perspective of many different viewpoints. Some people are vehement animal rights activists, and they come to it with that mindset. And other people are looking at it from a utilitarian, anthropocentric perspective. And then we need to respect that and come at it from that direction. We need multiple strategies if we're going to be smart. And given that we consider ourselves intelligent beings, I think we need to be smart about trying to change and shape human behavior. My hope for the book, The Politics of Species, is that it will be one more tool in an arsenal of tools. It's a tool that will influence some people, and it's a tool that will be of absolutely no use to other people. I think some people are moved by an emotional appeal, some people are moved by a very rational appeal, somebody else might be moved by a moral or religious appeal, and I think we will need many different ways in which to touch people, and the book will be one of those ways. And I think that for some people, hopefully, my hope is that it will influence them. And I think that for some people, what I really hope it will make them realize is that the question of how we treat other beings is not exclusively a moral one or exclusively a religious one. It's actually one that spans all different fields. And therefore it is very relevant, and it's very interesting, and it's absolutely current. We need to think about these things because we are having an enormous impact on the natural world and on the species that exist on this planet. And unless we start to think about the implications of our behavior, we're going to have losses that we are unquestionably going to regret in future generations.